Hi. And regular viewers of my channel will know I really love to use generative AI as part of my genealogy research. But to get the best out of AI, generative AI, you have to know how to write an effective prompt. So in this video, I'm going to look at 15 ways we can really improve the prompts that we write. Now I teach ChatGPT for my local online learning center. So this is part of my presentation. So I hope it's not too distracting, but I think this is the best way to present this kind of information. So what we're going to look at here then is the effective prompts to really get the true potential out of generative AI. And the first thing that a lot of people don't know is that we can instruct ChatGPT to ask questions to you. So instead of you asking questions to generative AI, you can ask it to ask questions for you. So for instance, I need to create a research plan. To create the best answer, please ask me questions, ask me one question at a time. In this way, you'll build up a prompt or a series of prompts that will ensure you have a really good answer at the end of the day. So this is really a secret that not a lot of people will know, but you can turn the tables. And we'll use that kind of theme as we run through the different tips and tricks of generative AI here. So next to that is be clear and specific. And the more detailed, the better in your prompt. You can write a very, very long prompt. This actually is a very short example here, but a vague prompt leads to vague responses. And you can actually almost fill the screen with a prompt. So the more detailed, the better. And if you get the wrong detail, for instance, you can always change that in a conversation. Then secondly, provide context. So in addition to providing the detail, tell ChatGPT what's going on. I'm researching an ancestor born in Germany 1870s. I found him in the 1900 and 1920 census, but could not find him in the 1910 census. I've checked familysearch.org. What should I do next? So this gives the additional details and allows the prompt to be very specific to the context that you're working on. Then next, if we look at settings, and an awful lot of people don't know this, check the personalization. Personalization within ChatGPT picks up some of the conversation, some of the things you have in previous conversations, and may tend to bias future conversations. So you've really got to keep an eye on this. So for instance, if I was having a conversation about Irish immigrants, and then in a subsequent chat, I just talked about immigrants, ChatGPT may assume that I'm still talking about Irish immigrants. So go to your settings and look at personalization and look at what kind of things you have in memory. You can delete them one at a time, or you can delete them all. But if your responses seem biased or a bit strange, first place to check is personalization. Then we can use the persona pattern for a more focused output. Now, using persona is really asking ChatGPT to act as a different type of person. Act as a financial advisor, act as a CPA. But within genealogy, we'll say act as a genealogy expert, or act as an Irish immigrant, or act as a historian, and you'll get more focused output. And you can actually try this in 2 or 3 ways. You can actually, if you're working outside of genealogies, do something like act as a HR consultant, act as a marketing consultant, and you'll get different kind of responses. So the persona pattern really ensures precise responses that are tailored to what you're trying to get out of ChatGPT. Then define the output you want. So if you want a summarization, ask for a summarization. If you want one paragraph, ask for one paragraph. If you want less than 200 words, say less than 200 words. And you can also say how you want it defined in terms of the audience you have. So you could say, create me a 3 bullet points for a skeptic, or create me a summary for somebody who doesn't understand immigration. So you can define the kind of output in terms of the type of output and the audience the output will be aimed at. Now we can also use examples, and here I'm using an example where I've uploaded a document into ChatGPT and asked it to look at the handwritten note. But just instead of just saying, help me decipher this handwritten note, I told ChatGPT that one of the words is Schmidt and it's 19th century German script. So anything I can do to make it clearer. Now I can also ask ChatGPT what kind of examples would help ChatGPT to make the request clearer. So remember, we can ask ChatGPT for advice about how to develop the prompts. Now, this is my favorite part of ChatGPT, and I also love that it makes mistakes, because brainstorming and idea generation really gives you an opportunity to think outside of the box. So it's great for planning and creativity. So ask for different alternatives, generate different ways to structure family history. And AI excels really at offering multiple perspectives and suggesting new angles. And this is one of the great things about it. So don't just stop at the vanilla output. Tell it the kind of thing, ask for brainstorming, ask for things that are slightly outside the norm. And then sometimes if we have a long conversation, especially, ChatGPT kind of gets confused. In fact, when I say ChatGPT, all generic AIs will kind of lose the plot if you have a very complex and long conversation. So we can start a new conversation, or we can tell ChatGPT to reset itself. Let's start with a new approach, forget the previous discussion. We can tell it to go back to the beginning. So you're in control of the conversation. You can either reset it within the conversation, or take a part of the conversation and move it over to a new conversation using cut and paste. Now, here's a really good tip. If you're having problems with a prompt, the easiest thing to do is to ask ChatGPT to actually write the prompt for you. And it will write a very, very good prompt. So for instance, I need to research my Irish ancestors. Can you suggest a well-structured prompt to help? You can ask me questions to build a prompt. Ask me one question at a time. You're going to get a really good prompt from this way. And then also I could say, how would you write this question for the best results? So don't use ChatGPT like you would Google. It's not Google. You can ask it to interact with you. And this writing prompts, some of the best prompts I've seen have actually obviously been written by ChatGPT, to be honest with you. Now, if you've got the paid version of ChatGPT, and again, most of the generative AI systems work the same way, it allows you to upload documents. Now you can upload documents to give context or background, but you can also ask ChatGPT to analyze the documents, give you a summary, extract information, summarize. So for instance, you can upload a census record and ask ChatGPT to transcribe it. Here's my ancestors' naturalization record, what details? Now, a word of warning here, if it's heavily cursive script, all the generative AI systems tend to have some issues with it. So when you're doing transcription or translation, don't expect anything more than 80%. You have to go back in and make sure it's correct. But it's a great way to get you started. Now, remember, working with ChatGPT is a conversation. So as you respond to the first prompt, you can take the conversation, you can iterate the conversation, you can refine the conversation, and you can take it in a completely different direction. So don't stop at the first prompt, continue the conversation and see how it's going. And you can also again ask ChatGPT, second prompt in, what follow-up questions should I ask to improve this answer? So ChatGPT will act as your guide through the prompt and through the conversation. And then another tip we can do is ask for multiple responses. You don't have to have one response. You can summarize a document, for instance, in 3 different ways: formal, casual, or skeptical. If you're writing an email, you can say, give me 5 different versions of this email. Or if you're writing the document, please suggest 10 different short titles for the document. So you're not limited to a single response. You can have multiple responses and choose the best one and go from there. Now, then you can ask ChatGPT to take the best response and refine it even further. So always ask for multiple responses if you're working in some kind of format that will allow you to do that. Then obviously AI is not a primary source. Always ask and review references and sources. Now it may give you incorrect references and incorrect sources, so always check what the sources are. And you can do that as part of your prompt, indicate the sources and references that you've used, but check those references. Even if ChatGPT is giving you a reference, don't take that to be a true reference. And one of the things I do a lot within ChatGPT is ask for further reading, and that will point you to documents and books and references where you can go and read. So an AI generated response may always sound convincing, but it's not always correct. We always have to fast check, and the output belongs to you. You're responsible for making it correct. AI is not responsible for the output that you use. And then use different types of prompt. So if you're not getting the information you want, or you're getting unexpected results, rephrase it or try a different approach. So for instance, in this example, instead of writing what records are available from Ellis Island between 1892 and 1924, you could write, how do I use Ellis Island records to track an ancestor's immigration journey? A slight change in wording can make a big change in the output. And that's pretty much it. That's the tips. Please experiment with the prompts. They really will bring a whole new outlook into your research and genealogy, and keep at it. We all know it's not always 100% correct. In fact, it never is. Assume it never is 100% correct. But writing a good prompt is part of the skill of getting the best out of generative AI. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've got something out of it. Please give me a couple of thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. And I'd love to hear your comments below. You take care and have good luck with your research, and really enjoy using generative AI. Thank you for watching.